Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Destination Context. My name is Blaze Lucy. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Silverpush, and I'm joined by Allie, our Strategic Accounts Director.
Hey Blaze, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining, as usual. I am personally excited about this episode. I think I said that the last time too, but that's okay to be excited about
We're
two
excited
things.
about every episode. It's
Yes,
exciting
that's true.
stuff.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Context level intelligence. What is it and why is it important? I Silverpush is a contextual intelligence company, and our dashboard gives people access to a specific layer of insights that you really don't get anywhere else, and that's because of the way we target and it's the way we measure, which means that's the way we activate. And in this episode, we're really going to dive into a bunch of dashboard examples that show why context level intelligence is so unique and how it can be so powerful. So before we do that, just an overview. The Silverpush contextual intelligence engine really works by segmenting context based on the signals that we get from all the video content everywhere, whether that's YouTube, TikTok, Meta, display, OLV. Our basic engine is analyzing all of those channels, understanding the content of the videos themselves in a lot of these cases, and then we're creating targeting models for each client based on their goals. So some of the signals, depending on the channel, they're very environment based, but it could be performance metrics, it could be length, it could be captions, view counts, brand mentions, sentiment. So topics, themes. So if you're really trying to get narrow and precise with your targeting, contextual intelligence does that by figuring out, this single podcast episode is talking about gardening tools, and you're a hardware company trying to sell gardening tools, so there's your ad. You will not spend your entire budget just advertising on that entire podcast. It's just that one episode. And that's really what we mean by video level curation here on the right. And just a better way, ultimately, of understanding what you're targeting to, because it's going to exclude a lot of the things that you usually might end up on. My example is always, if you're trying to get back pain medication advertisement to someone on YouTube, if you just do health and wellness broadly, you might end up on something like, gluten-free recipes, because that's health and wellness also.
Or Dr. Pimple Popper or something.
Yeah, exactly. So we're really passionate about using context to be precise. And the cool part about the type of targeting we do means you can set up your entire media plan just first without thinking about the channel, because you're really thinking about, okay, what's the content you want to be aligned with? This is an example that could work for a company like Hasbro. So if you're really working on family-oriented content, you might actually have a few different audiences in mind who consume different content, but you can set up that plan, and then Silverpush can automatically push those targeting metrics and criteria to all of the channels all at once.
Something else to add here, Blaze. I feel like I've heard context, targeting, and video spoken a ton in the past few weeks and months by almost everybody. But what really sets Silverpush apart, I think, is how long we've been in this space with like 12 years of video reviewing and I feel like just now as people are starting to catch on to the power of contextual targeting, I think it's really, really where we stand out is just that we've been doing this for so long and we have that backlog, so you can have those granular campaigns that actually reach at scale your consumers.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a great point. I love that we can kind of enter into any situation and figure out a way to layer some type of performance on even existing campaigns or tactics, because it really creates a huge incremental play too by just figuring out, we didn't target any of these people at all. So this brings us to context level intelligence. Really what we're talking about here is you suddenly have access to the contextual content most relevant to your audience, and you can go all the way to view through rate, the CPC, the CTR, tons of metrics available to you at what Ali just said, this very granular contextual level, which means that if you're targeting family content, you can see that people watch your ads the most when they're around toy reviews and play channels. If you're targeting new parents, you can understand that maybe people are watching these podcasts around baby items specifically. So you can get very precise and then take those insights and really optimize your campaign, not just on YouTube, but across your entire media plan and beyond. So this really does give you a better layer to understand your audience. As we said in a previous destination context episode, the cool stuff really happens when you're looking at something like TikTok, which you might not get this type of metric otherwise because our targeting is so specific. So you're getting a whole layer of new insights that otherwise you really wouldn't get. So now I'm going to hand it over to Allie to go through some different examples of the context level dashboards.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Blaze. I work in these dashboards a lot, and I find them to be extremely effective for our clients' marketing teams to find other pockets of interest and where they can influence their consumers even further. And so this was a travel cruise campaign, and it sought to reach luxury consumers and travelers, people who would be interested in a higher end cruise experience, thinking Four Seasons-esque type of experience. And what we really saw is that cultural influencers stood out. So what is great about this is this can then inform, oh, maybe we should run more boosted influencer posts on Facebook. Maybe we should think of different ways to bring luxury culture and influencers into our marketing and other departments. And so that's really, I think, a really powerful takeaway for these teams. And then we talk about it all the time, but seeing those strong VCRs, I believe this was a 30-second plus ad, so over half of the people stayed through to the end and did not hit that skip button. So that's really, really great to see. Cool. The next one we have is alcohol. Alcohol is a very complex, department and industry to be in right now. There's a lot going on and a lot of changes happening kind of across the board. So it's really about finding, maybe new pockets of consumers, and then also reminding consumers who do partake in alcoholic beverages that you're there and you're consistent and you want to be associated with fun and, social enjoyment. And so it's really, we found here that music and events was a really high performer with kind of music, news, and culture, and then music genres playing a large role. So that's particularly exciting. Thinking about news and culture, it could be great for this alcohol brand to broaden to podcast targeting, to look at different ways that they can reach this consumer in different stages of their day-to-day lives and media consumption.
Great. Yeah, I always find it interesting that there's wildly different performances of VCR on this dashboard and CTR, for example. So, music genre, high VCR, low CTR, it's probably music videos, whereas people who are watching music news have pretty high click-through rates. So yeah, that's always interesting to see too, because it really teaches you what you should be optimizing for and your targeting. And you can always take those learnings forward in your next campaign.
Yeah, and you can also see your most efficient spend. Same is true here with that CPCV column. So that I think really can also help inform how to get the most out of your budget as well. And we're always optimizing to, make those CPCVs as efficient as possible. This is actually one of my favorite ever dashboards. I think it's an incredible use case for how people go about implementing their targeting with Silverpush. This is a healthcare provider dashboard. You could also think of this as a bit of a B2B play because this was set up to target and reach healthcare professionals throughout their day-to-day when they're either interacting with content related to their profession or just interacting with YouTube in general, but reaching them in moments that they might be most interested. So this was a diabetes drug campaign that primarily targeted beta cell focused contexts, medical conferences and organizations, different master brand related terms, and then also healthcare provider education and research. And so I think this really just goes to show that YouTube is not just for music videos. YouTube is where people go when they need to fix their drain or when they need to, learn a new emerging topic in their field. They're always going to be turning to YouTube to get that video explanation. And so really, really great to see that here. I think primarily the medical conferences and organizations, that's a very strong point that people are looking up a conference that they've been to or maybe that they haven't been to and showing up in those spaces. It's quite effective to reach your healthcare provider target. And I think also healthcare providers can be very challenging to reach on YouTube. There's lots of restrictions, and context is a really great way to get around some of those privacy restrictions that YouTube requires, without of course putting anyone's privacy at risk, because it is that contextual targeting rather than tracking someone's personal identification number or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of the precision that you can get from context, because you can get so specific down to these videos that nobody on their right mind would watch unless they were the audience.
Right.
So I think that's a pretty creative way to reach those people,
Yeah.
Cool. Oops. Moving on.
Amazing. Blaze, I'm going to pass this back to you. I can't wait to hear more about this one.
Cool. Yeah, so this is a client that is very, I'd say, they're similar healthcare products, but trying to reach consumers instead. And I just think this is a pretty interesting way to kind of divide up the campaign tactics, and it shows really the types of content that resonate with that audience. So you have just like a tactic like new parents, and then looking at the tactics themselves, mom influencers, baby and home studio influencers, pregnancy influencers, you can see just how precise the cues are. There's not wildly different performances here, but I think that it's a good example of how different the targeting is. So if you do see something that's suddenly 20% VCR or 90% VCR, that always helps to kind of optimize the plan forward. But at the end of the day, even these tiny differences can really show you who's watching, how engaged they are with the ad when it comes on. And then you can compare that to your other tactics like health and wellness, competition, master brands. And then the other campaign that I just wanted to go through that I thought was interesting was targeting types of family and kids content. This is also usually a tricky way to reach the parents who are ultimately going to buy products. But it also is a really great way to look at what resonates with something like a kids content category. So you see toy reviews and play channels, animation and story channels, educational channels. So we know these are really high view through rates for the most part. But this client in particular would also be looking at click-through rates. If you look at kids' music and nursery rhymes, that click-through rate's like some of the highest that we've seen. And that's possibly because a parent is singing along, and then clicking. It might be an interactive kind of thing, and people are already engaged. So when the ad comes on, then they're much more likely to actually click through and look into the product itself. And yeah, I think that summarizes context level intelligence examples pretty well. So thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.